Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. My name is Christine, and today we're going to be focusing on reading and synthesis. Okay, so we're going to be focusing on moving beyond simply understanding text to developing the ability to question, evaluate, and combine ideas effectively. So let's take a look at our agenda for today's session and see how we'll structure today's session. Okay, so this is our session roadmap. And first, we'll begin with an activity to gauge how you feel about academic text. Then we'll look at critical reading, where we're going to explore what critical reading is and why it is essential. We'll have a quick look at Harvard referencing, and there'll be a refresher to ensure accurate citation. We will have a group activity where we're going to analyze some academic extracts. Then we'll debrief, we'll share some findings that we worked together as a class. Then we have a synthesis practice and peer review. And of course, we will end with a reflection and a wrap up and by setting up an action step. Okay, so let's review the learning outcomes so you know what skills you will take away today. All right, so for our learning outcomes, we're going to identify the main arguments and supporting evidence in academic text. We're going to evaluate the quality, strengths, and weaknesses of arguments, synthesize ideas from multiple sources into one cohesive statement, and of course, apply Harvard referencing accurately. Okay, so with these goals in mind, let's start with a warm-up to see how you currently feel about academic reading. So type one word describing how you feel when reading academic text. Okay, so maybe you feel curious about it, or you're confident, or overwhelmed, or stressed. Okay, so take some time to think about how you feel. I would say today I'm curious about academic text, always going into like what new knowledge will I learn. Sometimes if it's a busy day and I'm reading academic text, I can feel a bit stressed just because I may not be in the correct mindset where I can focus my attention 100%. So my answers will genuinely depend on the day and on the time and will range from how I feel. Okay, so maybe you feel the same where you may range between excited to confident to overwhelmed and stressed. Okay, so now that we explored our initial feelings, let's define what critical reading actually involves. Okay, so the first type of reading we're going to look at is summary, and then we'll compare that to critical reading. Okay, so passive is basically retelling what the author has said. So you are not adding your own interpretation of it, you are simply stating or restating what the author has said. Okay. Now, for critical reading, it's more active, you're more involved in it, you are questioning why and how the author presents information and whether the evidence is strong. Okay, so it's not you just restating what has been said, rather, you will actively engage with the material and you are considering all the points across it. Okay, so let's have an example of a passive sentence versus an active sentence. Okay, so the first example is a passive. AI use is growing in education, and that's by Smith 2023. Okay, as you can see, it's just simply restating facts. Now let's look at our example statement for critical reading. Smith 2023 highlights benefits of AI, but does not explore ethical concerns in depth. Now, if you notice, there's a bit of comparison going on there where it's saying highlighting the benefits of AI, but does not explore the ethical. So you are looking at AI in a holistic manner, not just the benefits, but also comparing ethical concerns, okay? So while these are both used in academia, okay, it is very important for you to employ critical reading in your studies, and therefore that will lead to critical writing, okay? So let's just have a quick refresher about Harvard referencing. You should be quite familiar. So we're looking at how we cite authors. If you have one author, then it's their last name, it's a publication. If you have two authors, last names, whichever names appear first in the publication and year of publication. Now, if you have three or more authors, which are very common in a lot of academic journals that you may read, it is first published author's surname, and then et al., and then year of publication. Now, if you are using a direct quote, please use author's last name, date of publication, and then page number where that quote can be found. Okay, so we're gonna put these skills to practice now. We're gonna start our group activity. So let's get in with it. All right, so basically, here are the instructions of what to expect in your activity. I'm going to place you in small groups. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're more than welcome to work on this by yourself. You're going to have about 8 minutes to read extract A and extract B, and then answer the analysis questions. So what I really want you to do is this. I want you to focus on identifying the main argument, supporting evidence, quality, any gaps or biasness mentioned, and quality of evidence, okay? So I really want you to focus on these aspects. I'll repeat it again. Main argument, supporting evidence, gaps or biasness, and quality of evidence. So this is essentially what you would be looking out for in these extracts. And then step 3, I want you to prepare these, to share these findings with us, okay? So we're going to have a look at extract A first, and then we'll go to extract B. But remember, when you're looking at extract A, you're looking for these points in mention, okay? So this is extract A. I'll read it out for you. Jones and Patel, 2022, report that digital learning platforms have transformed higher education by increasing accessibility and collaboration. Their 2-year study of 1,200 students found a 15% increase in retention rates, especially among part-time and mature learners. Next sentence, Thomas 2023 adds that these platforms reduce administrative workload for lecturers, stating the workload reduction has been transformative for both staff and students. Okay, that's a direct quote. It has a page number, and it does. Let's go to the next one. However, Jones and Patel's study focused on a single well-funded university, limiting generalizability. Okay, so that is extract A. I would say take a picture, screenshot this, and use that for going into your breakout rooms. I'm gonna share extract B now. Okay, so extract B, let me read it out. Singh 2023 argues that over-reliance on digital platforms can harm well-being. A survey of 2,000 students found that 64% of them reported fatigue and reduced motivation from extended screen time. Next sentence. Brown et al. 2021 found that 68% of students worried about data privacy and noted that to reduce face-to-face interaction with feelings of isolation, especially for first-year students. Last sentence, however, this study used self-reported data, which may introduce bias. Okay, again, take a screenshot of extract B and use it when you are working. All right, so let's look at our few questions that we're going to ask. So number one, what's the main argument of each extract? Two, what's the evidence supporting each argument? Three, what are the gaps, assumptions, or biases present? Four, reliability and relevance of evidence. And five, which extract is more convincing and why? Okay, so I'm gonna put you into groups right now, and you are more than welcome to work together. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can press pause, work through these questions, and press play when you are ready to share your answers. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit to think about that, and I will begin in a minute again, a few minutes. Okay, so let's have a look at some of our answers. So if you want to show your answers, you're more than welcome to do so. We're going to look at the main argument from both extracts, key supporting evidence, one gap or assumption or bias, and reflection of evidence quality. Okay, so let's have a look at my model answer. So this is a general model answer you can use to compare your group responses. It may or may not match with yours, but as long as you've answered all of these questions, you are on the right track. Okay, so let's look at extract A. So extract A's argument is digital platforms improve flexibility and retention. Okay, what was the evidence? The evidence was a 15% increase, reduced lecturer workload. Okay, the gaps. What was the gaps in the study? The gaps in the study was only one university was studied, and it is lacking the negative aspect of digital platforms. Okay, so that is the bias that is found in extract A. Let's examine extract B. Now, extract B argument is an over-reliance on digital media is harming well-being and privacy. Okay, and the evidence that's given is 64% of students experience fatigue, and the 68% of students have privacy concerns. Okay, and the gaps that was reported is it was a self-reported survey data bias. So they themselves had said it is not enough information because it's self-reported. Okay, so let's move on from analyzing text to combining them, and that is synthesis. So let's move on to the next one. So from analyzing to synthesis, what is analysis, basically. So analysis was when you are breaking texts apart to understand them individually. Think of it almost like deconstructing a sandwich. Okay, so when you have a sandwich, it's already built together. It's made of bread. It may have a protein source. It may have vegetables in it. You have leaves. Sorry, it may have lettuce, um, carrots per se, tomatoes. Will have a sauce, and like I said, some form of protein and your bread choice. Okay, so you would get it together as a whole package. But if you were to take your sandwich apart, you would see it's made of different items. So just like that, when you are using analysis in academic work, you are taking apart all the small bits that make up the large chunks of information. Okay, so that's it when you are examining text individually. Now, synthesis is when you are combining multiple texts into a single academic statement. So let's use the example of the sandwich again. So the sandwich is made of different items: your bread, your protein source, and the actual sauces that go on it, lettuce, gherkins, tomatoes, onions, and those are all different things. But when you put them together, and they may come from different places, and when you're putting them together, they form a new item, and that is your sandwich. Okay, so now the sandwich has become something new. It's different. It's still made up of all of those individual ingredients. However, it is now its own new food item. Okay, so synthesis is basically combining different text and putting it into a single academic statement. So an example of synthesis is here. Digital platforms improve collaboration, and that's from Jones and Patel 2022, but overuse can harm well-being, Singh 2023. Okay, so that's fairly almost a passive writing, okay, because we haven't incorporated too much of critical thinking. However, we have shown a more balanced view of digital platforms, okay. We are focusing on the positive, as in can improve collaboration, and we're also looking at it in totality, as we are focusing on the overuse and harm. So you have a positive, and then you have a negative, and it's in one sentence, okay? So that is basically synthesis, showing an overview of the subject on hand. Okay, so now we're going to look at examples of weak versus strong synthesis. So weak form of synthesis, digital learning is good, but it also has its problems. Now, apart from the fact that I have weak over here, how would you know that it is a weak example? Okay, you're more than welcome to share your answers with me, and we can use the chat box. If you're watching on YouTube, you can press pause, write some of your reasons why you think it is a weak example. Okay. So, some of the reasons why it may be weak. Firstly, it doesn't have any reference there. Okay. That's just stating something out loud as a statement. It comes across as a general statement, but you need to back it up by information or evidence. Okay, so no reference, which is worrying and we should definitely avoid. Now, also, it is far too general. Digital learning is a very broad spectrum. Okay, which types of digital learning? Digital learning in education in itself is a broad spectrum. Which age group are we appealing to? Which age group are we talking about that may have problems? Which age group finds it good? So it's very general, it's lacking references, and you are presented with both a positive and a negative, but you don't have enough information for you to critically analyze this sentence. Okay, so let's look at the strong example. Strong example is digital platforms improve retention, Jones and Patel 2022, but excessive use may harm well-being and privacy. Singh 2023, Brown et al. 2021. Now, I just want to call to your attention, we have a minimum of 5 authors, okay? Brown et al. Are minimum of 3, could possibly be more. Singh is a different author. Sorry, 6. Jones and Patel are 2 authors. So we have used a minimum of 6 authors in one sentence, okay? Now, you may say, that is a lot of authors to be using, that's a lot of references. And yes, it may seem at first, for lack of a better word, overcompensation. However, in academia, the skill is prized where you can read and synthesize information, okay? So strong digital platforms improve retention is backed up by this evidence. And then you are showing the other side of digital platforms and the effects. Excessive use may cause well-being and privacy. You are condensing 3 different sources of information into one sentence, okay? Now you may say, Christine, I would like to get multiple sentences rather than just one. And I would say this sentence, albeit it's short, is stronger than 3 separate sentences focusing on this topic. Okay. Now, the reason why I say it's stronger is because it shows you lecture. You have read a lot of information. You understand the current trends in digital platforms. You understand the current concerns in digital platform research, and you are aware that digital platforms are on the increase, or there's a lot of positives, but they also still investigating or researching in current platforms, digital platforms. So it's not the end of this research, it's still ongoing. So you, by using a sentence like this, show all that information, research that you have done to gather this information, and it shows that you are able to spend a lot of time researching and synthesize, okay? So now we're going to practice synthesizing our own sentence. So let's get on with that. So what I want you to do is I want you to write one synthesis sentence combining extract A and extract B, okay? Now, here's a checklist I want you to take a picture of or take a screenshot and make sure you are using this checklist for guidance. 1, am I linking words correctly? 2, do I have at least 2 sources cited? 3, is it a clear academic tone? And 4, have I used Harvard referencing correctly? Okay, so I'm going to leave that up for just a minute more. Take a screenshot of that or write it down to make sure you are following all of these points. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next slide now. So here are my two sentences that I would like you to synthesize. Now, the first sentence is a contrast example. And by seeing the word however, that shows us it is definitely contrast. Okay, so you don't have to take my word for it. If I say it's contrast, you could also go in and say, yes, Christine is correct, because I see the word however being used, therefore showing contrast. Okay, so let's look at the sentence. Digital platforms improve accessibility. And that is by Jones and Patel, 2022. However, overuse may harm well-being. Now, the next sentence is a building example of a sentence, okay? And let's look at that. Building on Jones and Patel, 2022, Singh, 2023, highlights the need for balance between online and traditional teaching. Okay, so your contrast example shows a balance of positive and negative viewpoints. Your building example shows logical progression, starting from the benefits and then highlighting possible issues that may come up. Okay, so I want you to synthesize both these sentences and have a go with that. I'm going to give you some time to think about that. If you are watching on YouTube, you can press pause now and please press play when you are ready for my model answer. Okay, so let's go. So when you are done, I want you to swap your work or show your friends, and your friends should be looking at a peer review rubric that's now on the screen. Okay, so here's your criteria linking words. If your friend has done an excellent job and your linking words were seamless and precise, please give them 2 points. If they were mostly correct, 1. If you think it needs a little bit of work, they don't get any. Okay, Harvard referencing, if they use good references and they're fully accurate, 2 points. If they were good with some minor errors, 1. They didn't have any Harvard referencing, no points for that, unfortunately. Clarity and flow, you think it was very clear and concise, 2 points. It was understandable, 1. And if it was confusing or unclear, unfortunately, no points. Okay, so let's look at this to make sure our synthesized sentence has this. Linking words are used correctly, 2 or more sources reference, the sentence flows logically, Harvard reference correct, and academic tone maintained. So, make sure you have filled in your answer. So before I go, I would like to have a reflection and some final thoughts. What change will you make to your reading and writing this week? And critical reading is about asking thoughtful questions and not just finding answers. Okay, so have a good think about what you would like us to share and how you can make changes to your writing this week. All right, so we're going to have a quick quiz to test your understanding before we go. Which of these is a synthesis statement? A, digital learning is popular at universities. B, Jones and Patel state that digital learning increases retention. C, digital learning improves retention. Jones and Patel, 2022. But harm well-being. Question 2, which Harvard citation is correct for 3 authors? A. Smith, Jones, and Brown, 2022. B. Smith et al., 2021. C. Smith and others, 2021. So for question 1, your answer should be C. Okay. Question 2, your answer should be B. You can use A. I would double check with your university, but B is commonly most used. Okay, thank you for today's session. Thank you for joining today's session. I hope you enjoyed your session with me, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Goodbye.